Hi, my name is Rob Scott from UC Today, and welcome to another monthly Microsoft Teams news update. As always, I'm joined by Tom Arbuthnot, UC Solutions Architect, Microsoft Certified Master, and MVP. Welcome, Tom. How's it going?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Rob. Yeah, keeping busy. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Very good. Oh, and just before we get started, Tom, we just need to give New Wave a shout out for sponsoring this month's news update. So thank you very much for that. But Tom, let's talk about Microsoft Teams because a lot's happened just in the last few weeks, and we've got a really interesting update for our viewers and our listeners. What do you think?
Yeah, it was a really big announcement. Obviously, there was Enterprise Connect, and there was a few announcements there, so we'll talk about that. You were there in person. I was there virtual. So yeah, how was it? I guess that's a good place to start. How did you find the show?
Yeah, well, as we record this, I've literally got off a plane this morning. So it was a really great event. I mean, certainly I'm feeling this buzz, at any kind of in-person event I go to at the moment where it's really just great to get back together. So the whole, a lot of the industry were there, a lot of, the main vendors were there, all the analysts and general kind of community were there. So it was a great event from that point of view. It was the Enterprise Connect of 3 years ago as well, in terms of it was very well organized, very well put together at the Gaylord Palms in Orlando, Florida. The content tracks and everything else was again top notch. So I came away, excited, for the future again. It's great to get back together, and I'm looking forward to the next one. Microsoft, had quite a substantial presence there this time as well at EC, so that was good to see. And obviously they had the day one keynote. They were first on Tuesday, which was good as well. So what did you pick up? I know you didn't go, but what did you pick up on the kind of on the news wire or from the community?
Yeah, no, I must admit I did miss being there, or not being there rather. Too much work on, unfortunately, with the new business and stuff. But yeah, it would look like it was from a remote. It looked really good, like all the usual faces. I think it's interesting. I watched a lot of the keynotes from a lot of the vendors to kind of keep my hand in, and obviously including Microsoft. A lot of stuff is re-announcement at these shows now because the platforms are evolving so fast and adding features so fast. It's more like a roundup of here's everything and here's our vision, less like, if we go back, certainly 5-6 years, the Enterprise Connect, there used to be blogs. I'd have like 12 blogs because there'd be 12 new features that come out of nowhere that are coming. Whereas this is more of a roundup of themes. Microsoft announced some interesting stuff. We'll talk about some of it in more detail, but lots of little features as well, just about making hybrid working better. So one of the little ones, for example, was Outlook RSVP. So Outlook having an ability to say, I'm attending physically to the meeting or virtually to the meeting, which is a really tiny feature, but really practical for where we are today. I mean, I know certainly every meeting I have, I say accept, and then I'm like, yeah, am I going to be London or am I not going to be London? Like, it's just taking away that friction for the new hybrid working, which is quite cool.
And that came through loud and clear in Nicole's keynote, actually, in terms of they're really doubling down on the hybrid workplace, getting ready for the hybrid workplace. And, that's really great to see. It's really refreshing because they are thinking about, the little things as well. As you mentioned, the Outlook RSVP, nice little feature. But they seem to really be big on, getting ready for hybrid work, if you will.
Yeah, and it seemed like there was a hell of a lot in the contact center space, which has not traditionally been a big part of that show going years back. So it's interesting to see those two worlds obviously merging, and with Zoom getting in the game, first party, and their recent rebrand of their contact center offer, Microsoft with the Dynamics offer, and all the other players in that space. That seems like quite a hotbed of innovation relative to the UC world these days.
I absolutely agree, and that there was a real buzz around contact center and CX and conversational AI. Everything customer engagement based. There was loads of it at the show, not just from sessions talking about the UCAS and CCAS together and how to use speech technologies to your advantage and that kind of thing. But the show floor was packed with CX vendors, and some great announcements come from some of those vendors as well. So it was, definitely, the EC is not just a UC and collaboration event. It really seems to be kind of I suppose, taking a whole kind of,
Yeah, anything comms, isn't it, really? And
anything
the
comes.
whole comms industry is just merging itself, so it's quite interesting.
Absolutely. Good stuff. Well, another thing at the event was Operator Connect, and that's certainly something that we've been talking about for a while now. But just before the show, they announced Operator Connect Mobile. So, Tom, I was wondering if you could just talk us through that in terms of what is it, and what how can customers take advantage of that?
Yeah, this was definitely the biggest announcement that's just come out, and it's been an absolute fire in terms of LinkedIn conversation and my blog posts and stuff like that. So lots and lots of interest. What it is, it's fixed mobile convergence, which is that technology has been around for a little while, but it's Microsoft, right? So we build it ourselves and say it's brand new, but it is really impactful, and obviously so many people are using Teams. So what it is the ability to have a single number from an operator that is both a mobile number or a cell number for the Americans, and a SIP/landline number in Teams. So it's not call forwarding, it's not forking, it's not masking. It's legitimately, I go to an operator and I have one number. They effectively fork it in the cloud, and it's my legitimate GSM mobile number. I can use the phone's native dialer. I can send SMS messages back and forth on the phone. But also, when I use the phone's native dialer and I make a call, I'm making a call over GSM, not over data, just normal phone call, but it's going through Teams. So that means I get on-hook, off-hook presence for Teams. It means I get a single voicemail, my Teams voicemail. I also can get compliance session recording from Teams on the mobile calls, which is a really big deal in
Nice.
financial services. It's such a pain. There's companies like TruePhone and others that have special technology to record cell phone calls, mobile calls, but it's a much easier model if that's all in one place or on one platform. So I think there's two places where this will be a really big deal. Like any customers that are kind of leaning towards mobile first, they can get a single number for mobile and also use it in Teams. So SMB will be a big deal there, for example, but also retail, for example. But lots of enterprise customers as well have been talking about reducing the number of phone lines and landlines, because it's just everything's a meeting now. But if you can offer a single contract and line that is both the corporate mobile and the Teams phone, then that's quite interesting.
And when is this available?
Yeah, so the preview is beginning Q2, so this quarter 2022, and GA is somewhere around second half of 2022. So Microsoft timeline, so probably the tail end of 2022 realistically. I know there's some very limited testing going on. At the moment it is BT, Rogers, Swisscom, Telia and Verizon, because they've both got mobile and landline. I'm not sure what the right way to say landline is anymore, but SIP services. But there'll be more operators added in as well over the course of time, as with Operator Connect. This could cause a real shake-up in the telco industry, because it gives the ability for the people who run mobile to chase after those landlines and SIP trunks, and the people who run the SIP trunks say, well, wait a minute, why don't you roll your mobile contract into us? So it's going to cause some quite interesting competitive scenarios where people are going to make a land grab to bring them into one service provider, and there's a really legitimate business and technical reason to do it as well.
Fantastic. Well, let's see how that heats up then. And in terms of other technologies, another technology that they mentioned at the show was DECT. Now, DECT's been around for years, but it was mentioned at the show and it's coming to Teams. Can you give us a bit more info on that?
Yeah. So DECT is an alternate wireless technology to connect handsets. So you have a base station and you have a handset. So rather than going over Wi-Fi or mobile cellular, it's a different type of Wi-Fi. Digital Enhanced Cordless Telecommunications is the acronym.
Basically, like a cordless phone at home uses DECT technology. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. Those old, the BT phones with the aerials pulling out. If you're in the UK and you remember those, they were a big deal. So essentially, it's still very popular in certain verticals. So retail manufacturing, where you need really long coverage for voice, and they're not Wi-Fi equipped, or the cell service isn't very good, as an example. But also you get lots of ruggedized devices. So phones that are basically made of rubber. You can drop them, throw them, have them on a building site, wash them, or medical is another scenario where like Poly have some that have special antimicrobe protection covers on them and things like that. So there are use cases where these types of phones are needed. And up until recently, if you had them, you'd have to run them separately to Teams. But now you'll be able to register those devices directly to Teams via the Teams SIP gateway, and there'll be in every way a legitimate Teams endpoint. So again, your same number, you're using Teams infrastructure. There's nothing else in the middle. The initial vendors are Spectralink, Ascom, and Poly. And I think Yealink and Gigaset are coming September.
Great.
So around June we'll start seeing that. I've been playing with some of the Spectralink stuff, and it all seems pretty interesting actually. There's quite a lot of options now, because you've got things like legitimate Wi-Fi or cell data, and you've got things like walkie-talkie native on Teams. You've got Operator Connect Mobile coming, which is another way to have your Teams endpoint be roaming and use standards-based endpoints on the mobile. And now you've got DECT in play as well, so lots of good options for customers for that kind of first-line worker, frontline worker, manufacturing, retail, construction areas where we're traditionally, UC vendors haven't had the best coverage for those kind of use cases.
Yeah, normally you'd have to have some kind of SIP connection to maybe a third-party platform like Spectralink to then, deploy a full solution. So I think that's
exactly.
Great. I think it's really good news. Okay, so next up, we said we'd talk about Microsoft Work Trend Index for 2022 in an effort to support more and more hybrid work applications. Microsoft have just released this, haven't they, recently? Do you want to give us a bit of an update on that, Tom?
Yeah, this is pretty interesting. So Microsoft this is the second year they've done it, a fairly massive workplace survey, and you see a lot of these from vendors, but very often they're small sample sizes and a bit marketing-y. And not that this one isn't a little bit marketing-y, but it's a really decent global survey of employees in different workforces. So it's more than 30,000 people in 31 countries. And to Microsoft's credit, they've done a really good job, or whoever they sourced it to, of breaking it down in terms of which countries think which things and what are going on. And actually, they've even given you the results of different countries, and they're very different in their opinions. So it's not like a single set of results. It's this country is actually quite culturally different to this country.
Yeah, it's really insightful, in fact, isn't it? And we'll certainly put a link in the description to that so everyone can pick that up.
Yeah, there's five takeaways I think we can just talk about briefly. So one of them is that they say employees have a new worth it equation, which definitely resonates with what I'm hearing businesses struggle with. And it's literally that, the pandemic has made everybody rethink like how important work is, what the trade-offs of work and life are, and some of this let's all get back to the office conversation. Like I know I feel it now. I go into London maybe a couple of times a week. I used to do that all the time without thinking about it, and now I'm like, I lose a good hour and a half, 2 hours doing that, transport and everything else. So there's that piece of the puzzle, which is quite interesting. Second big takeaway was managers apparently feel wedged between leadership and employees. So employees are saying we want to work more flexibly, we need to be school runs and different times of day, anything like that. And apparently the general philosophy from leadership is traditional, get back to the office, and managers are stuck in the middle trying to give that message to people that don't want to hear it. And employees are being much more mobile in terms of their jobs. If the environment doesn't suit them, they will look around. It's a buyer's market in terms of employees finding roles at the moment. So managers are stuck in the middle trying to keep the best employees and keep leadership happy.
It's really interesting, isn't it, what they've done there? It's really insightful. And, work is changing big time at the moment. And, with hybrid work and everything else surrounding that, I think what they've done there is kind of, I suppose really kind of taking a look at the culture, the impact on culture and the people, as opposed to just concentrate on the technology. So I think it goes hand in hand with what we're talking about, and certainly a recommended read for anyone out there interested in how to develop their organization and enterprise culture for hybrid work. So
yeah, definitely, it's worth a read if you're in that space at all, or you're responsible for that. It's worth understanding, and wherever you are in the world, it's worth looking at the local results to see how it's different in your region to the other places in the world as well.
Indeed. So next up, we said we'd talk about devices. There was a bit of a hoo-ha at the Enterprise Connect around the Neat stand because they just announced that they got certified for Microsoft Teams.
Yeah. So this has been a long time coming. So Neat initially launched as a Zoom exclusive device vendor, even backed by Zoom financially, or the owners of Zoom. But at some point they decided that they needed to be multi-vendor. Probably, to be fair, the massive market of Teams isn't a big addressable market for them. They've always had a really good reputation in the Zoom space in terms of hardware quality and innovation and things. So they are certified. There's a Neat board, which is a big 65-inch touchscreen, sound bar and video bar all in one, and that has touchscreen and kind of whiteboarding. It's quite interesting. It's different to the Surface Hub. So the Surface Hub is a much more expensive device, but it has other applications and runs a flavor of Windows. Whereas these devices are Android, more single-use devices, so they're designed to be specifically Teams collaboration endpoints. But they bring that 65-inch good experience down to a slightly more aggressive price point, which is interesting. And they also got a pad and a bar certified. And one of their uniques is they've got these additional sensors. They've got CO2 sensors, VOC sensors, acoustic ultrasonic sensors. So they pack some extra tech into their kit, which gives them some unique experiences.
Yeah, and just to stand there and look at one in the flesh, they look the part. They top quality.
Yeah, it's that real high-end kind of Nordics design language. Like, it all looks very nice. Yeah, it's good quality kit, and the audio processing as well is there's a lot of tech that goes into that. So it's one of those things where it's worth seeing them in person and playing with them if you get the chance.
Well, hats off to Neat. They've got two of the biggest sales channels, in the world right now, in the UC space. So I'm sure they'll be ultimately successful with their products. So selling into Teams and Zoom now. Wow.
Yeah, I think they're going to be busy. Judging by the online feedback, a lot of people have been waiting to test those devices out on Teams.
Great stuff. Well, next up, we said we'd talk about ACS, Azure Communication Services. There's a couple of things that are new on the ACS front this month.
Yeah. So for a refresher, ACS is Microsoft's CPaaS platform. So it's actually the platform that underlies Teams in terms of audio and video processing and phone calls and things. And Microsoft have had for a while first-party US phone numbers, so you could dial in and out. So that's either to build your own application, like you can build a line of business application on that, but also that is the infrastructure that the Dynamics contact center uses, called Voice Channel. So for the longest time, if you wanted a native number from Microsoft, you could only get US, or you had to bring your own phone numbers in. They've now added the UK and Denmark in preview, so that's the first two countries beyond the US. So it's interesting for developers who are building on CPaaS, but it also means you can now get first-party numbers for Denmark and the UK on Microsoft's contact center offering in Dynamics, and there's obviously plans to add more countries for that. So I think they're trying to accelerate that and get more countries on. So it's an interesting one to watch in our space, one for the CPaaS space, but two for Microsoft ramping up their first-party contact center coverage a bit more.
Interesting. Yeah, I like that the kind of take the kind of view you've given us on that, in terms of how that benefits the other parts of the business as well, because we've heard about contact center, Microsoft's contact center solution, but I think we're yet to see it kind of go, running full throttle. So that'd be interesting.
Definitely, it was a big fanfare because they put their hat in a massive market, and potentially they're quite a disruptor in these markets. But to be honest, I haven't seen a lot of it in the real world. It's just been early. There's lots of Dynamics out there, but not lots of Voice Channel. So I think it's going to be a slow burn, but they're obviously one to watch in that
Absolutely.
space.
Great stuff. Well, that's the news for today. But we said we'd just do a quick event plug. Actually, there's just one this month. Tom, we've got UC EXPO in Manchester.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. So this is the UC EXPO show that traditionally is in London. They're doing one in Manchester. It's part of a bigger Manchester Tech Week, so there's a whole bunch of events going on. I'll be doing a few different panels with customer conversations around Teams, surprise, surprise. But there's all sorts of vendor coverage there as well. So that's a general UC show. So yeah, if anybody's going to be there, let me know. It'd be great to
Absolutely. So the UC Today team will also be there. So that's on the 27th and the 28th of April this month. So we look forward to seeing you there. But that's about it, Tom. So great to see you, and thanks for taking time out to give us another insightful Teams news update. That's been fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Good stuff. And we'll be back next month with even more.
And that's it from us. If you've enjoyed today's session, please subscribe to UC Today News and give this video a quick share on social, as it's always appreciated. And if you're a Microsoft Teams fan and want to be part of the conversation, you can connect with Tom or myself on LinkedIn and Twitter, and our social links are also in the description. I'm Rob Scott from UC Today. We'll be back again next month. Thanks for watching.